Good day and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In today's ongoing coverage of the civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia, we're going to focus on first and foremost the reported combat that had been occurring east of the Tigrayan capital of Mekelle. So if we look back a few days ago, we started receiving reports, especially in terms of Amharic media, Ethiopian news media, and even certain comments within comment provider sections within the scope of YouTube that stipulated that the city of Mekelle could possibly be on the verge of falling by a large force of Amhara and Ethiopian military units coming out of Abala. So, in this video, we're going to conduct rumor control. Here are the facts. So, apparently, within the last 48 to 72 hours, there was a force of Amharan militias and regional police units of Afar and possible units of the Ethiopian military. Some of those uniforms, those personnel were observed wearing inside of Abala, did not appear to be Ethiopian army uniforms, but appeared to be the uniforms worn by Afar regional special forces and other paramilitary type units. We believe that the formations that were entering the Tigray region out of the vicinity of Abala was of a battalion or regimental sized force ranging anywhere from 300 up to 1,000 personnel. Again, not the type of force that would need to be utilized to seize control of Mekelle. Now, with that being said, obviously, Abala as a bird flies is about 20 miles from from Mekelle. So, any force that would be massing 20 miles from the regional power base, the de facto capital of the Tigray region, obviously would be something of a concern. So we understand that this force did move in a westerly direction towards what you would define as Mekelle, and that force was interdicted, engaged, and defeated inside of the Tigray region. We are now hearing reports that units of the Tigrayan Defense Forces are now working its way to envelop and possibly seize control of Abala and possibly create more strategic depth, so forces of the like that which entered the Tigray region cannot do so in the future. So, are we going to see a full-scale invasion of the Afar region by the Tigrayan Defense Forces? Probably not. We will see most likely strategic depth being created. We will probably see Abala fall and be taken control over by the Tigrayan Defense Forces to eliminate any possibility that said operation could be conducted again. But again, a very fairly insignificant operation. It was not that large in scope, and again, the amount of personnel being utilized was not that great as well. And given the nature of the Afar region, in terms of having the ability to support large elements of ground forces, it's simply not feasible. If you look at, if we hover in and we look at Abala, obviously, if you were going to deploy huge amounts of forces in this town, it would be a strain on the resources of the entire region, especially if you're talking about tens of thousands of forces. And that simply was not the case. There's not that many forces deployed in this area. The region simply cannot support that kind of force. You're talking about personnel and numbers that exceed the actual population size of the town itself. And once you start to get into that area, it really causes a strain on the local economy and obviously its infrastructure as well. And given the nature of some of these forces that we've seen, especially some of the external actors that could be operating in the Afar region, such as Eritrean forces, the ongoing foraging methods of the Eritrean army, in which they take stuff that does not belong to them, would also obviously most likely occur in this area as well, further eroding the population's viewpoint on Eritrean forces or whatever forces are operating in the Afar region. But again, I would also like to point out some of the irrational exuberance that was identified in terms of the thought process that Mekele was on the verge of falling from an invasion out of the Afar region, and that was simply not the case. It was an erroneous report that was not going to occur. The force that did mass and did enter the Tigray region was defeated in zone, suffering casualties, and in all likelihood, the town of Abala will now fall to the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and more strategic depth will be created by the Tigrayan Defense Forces to protect itself. In other areas of the country, obviously the fighting continues. We anticipate larger offensive operations will occur post-rainy season. The Tigrayan Defense Forces continue to hold key areas that it has taken. They control areas many miles west of Sokoto, including Sokoto to the south-southwest. Obviously, they control Lalibela down to Gashina and areas west of Gashina. They continue infiltration raids west of Gashina and southwest of Gashina. Tigrayan Defense Forces continue on the doorstep of Dese. To the north of Dese, operations continue around Solula, Haik, with firm positive control over areas Weldia, Mursa, and south of Mursa as well. That is the current situation on the ground in terms of the Amhara region. Fighting continues, obviously. Mobilization continues, obviously. In the western portions of the Tigray region, that area continues to be occupied by forces of the Eritrean army and forces of the Amhara paramilitary militia units. We continue to hear about and see ongoing border skirmishing near the Sudanese border with irregular elements engaging each other. One side supports the Sudan, and the other side obviously supports Ethiopia, Eritrea, or the Amhara militias in that area. We continue to see operations by the Oromo Liberation Army in Oromia. Those operations continue. The OLA continues to control territory, continues to train and equip forces that are continuing to harass the federal government inside of Ethiopia. Those forces that are fighting those forces, the Oromo Liberation Army, are mainly security forces, while the brunt of the Ethiopian military, or the remnants of the Ethiopian military, continue to try and defend itself in the Amhara region from ongoing operations by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. But that is the current status quo as we speak on the actual battlefield. Another important issue that is not getting as much coverage as it should is the famine that is taking place in Tigray, and the genocidal activities that are occurring through the use of the anaconda strategy. Very little food is getting through. And one of the methods of the Ethiopian military, of the Amhara, of the Eritrean militaries, is to simply starve Tigray. That is their war strategy right now, is an attempt to basically cut off food and resources and starve the country to death. If you have ever been without food for 2 or 3 days, or have just had a cup of rice or two, it is not a good experience. Starving to death is one of the most horrendous ways to perish one could possibly go through. Your body starts to eat itself, and it is really something that is not a pretty death. And unfortunately, we are going to start seeing that occur inside possibly of the Tigray region, even inside of the Amhara region, as this conflict continues. The strategy right now, this anaconda strategy, because a military defeat of the Tigrayan Defense Forces by the Ethiopian military was something that could not be accomplished. So the Ethiopian state is looking to deploy this anaconda strategy to starve the region to death. And that is what is absolutely occurring. More than 400,000 people right now, if not more, are in jeopardy of not getting enough food and clean water to drink in a period of time. And that obviously is concerning many governmental agencies in the West, as well as non-governmental agencies as well. But that is something that is omnipresent and probably not getting talked about enough in terms of what is occurring to the people that are residing inside of the Tigray region. It is really a horrendous situation. Obviously, the people in the Tigray region went through a great ordeal in terms of the direct occupation of the Tigray region by forces of the Eritrean army, the Ethiopian army, untrained Amharan raiders and paramilitaries committed many acts of rape and pillaging inside the country. Once those forces were evicted, it now faces basically strangulation through lack of food being caused by these outside forces, Eritrea and Ethiopia. And on the flip side of the equation, the once fast-growing Ethiopian economy is now facing stagnation. Inflation is rising, and outside investment is wavering as outside investment does not want to operate inside of a high-intensity war zone with a country, a leadership group in terms of the Prosperity Party that could be heading towards a despotic regime, much like you see inside of Eritrea. So if outside investment enters Ethiopia, enters Addis Ababa, enters into mining agreements, into infrastructure agreements, you could see some of those investments be seized by a despotic state or government that could arise itself inside of Ethiopia proper. But again, that is the situation. Those are the concerns. Those are the facts. And we will continue to monitor the situation and report as warrants are needed. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. I will talk to you soon.